Hey guys, I'm here today with a review on my new speakers, and the reason I have new speakers already is because I thought I broke my Ariane Legacy Deep Stoner 300s, but apparently I didn't, and I just sold them to my friend. So I've got new ones now, and here's a review on them. Now, the first thing to make note of is that these are Bose speakers, and from what I found, Bose speakers aren't necessarily very accurate. They're not hi-fi quality speakers. They're more fun to listen to, and these most certainly are. I find them so enjoyable. In fact, I find myself just putting on music through them just because I can, just because they're just fun to listen to. Now, the mids are quite lackluster, honestly. The mids are so limited and so veiled that in some songs it's actually difficult to hear the vocalist, which is kind of annoying, but you know, whatever. The bass on these speakers is ridiculous. Now, as I mentioned, fun is a big component of the sound of Bose speakers, and bass is kind of what contributes to that the most. In this case, the bass is very loud and boomy, and it's quite muddy, but that's fine because, again, they're not the most accurate speakers, and I'm pretty sure they're not meant to be. With the bass dial on the back, I find that putting it just past halfway up is like the sweet spot to when it's not completely overpowering everything else, but it's still there, and it's still punchy enough to be fun. Now, I mentioned that the bass is quite loud. Just because I felt like it, I turned the bass up all the way, and I turned the volume quite loud, and I took a sticky note and I cut some slits into it, and I put it over the port on the subwoofer, just because it pushes so much air. So I'm gonna let you take a look and listen at that. So as you can see, the sub is crazy powerful. The whole system is peak 300 watts. I actually don't know RMS because it's really difficult to find information on these speakers. Now, part of why I think it pushes so much air is because I'm fairly certain that the port and the driver, or drivers, I've seen anywhere between 1 and 2 5.5-inch drivers on the front. I think it's because the driver and the port are on the front, covered by this plastic speaker, so the only way for the sound to escape is through the port on the bottom. Moving on to the satellite speakers, they do have 2 drivers in each of them. Again, it's really difficult to find information on these speakers, so that's why I'm saying I'm pretty sure for all these things. But in addition to those dual 3-inch drivers, it does have 2 very thin ports that run the whole length of the top, and the cloth covering on them is quite nice. Now, the subwoofer and the satellite speakers are not the only components of this system. Now, the satellite speakers and the control box, which I'll get to in a moment, both connect to the subwoofer, which is where the amplifier is. Now, this control box, this is where the light is that tells you basically the status of the speakers. It's also where you will find the RCA input and optical input. Now, this control box is also where the infrared light from the remote gets received, which is basically the only way to control this system, which is actually a bit of an issue because about a week ago, the battery in the remote, which is like this really obscure button cell battery, actually died, so I couldn't use the speakers because there's no way to turn them on or change the volume or anything beyond using the remote. Now, another interesting feature that I don't have the means to test is this speaker system is also meant to be able to mimic 5.1 surround. Now, how Bose says that's supposed to work is you point the speakers directly out from the wall, and the 2 drivers for the satellites are actually not facing the exact same direction. They're both angled outward just slightly. And what's meant to happen is the sounds behind you are meant to go from the outward facing drivers and bounce behind you, and the inward facing drivers are meant to be the front channels. Now, like I said, I didn't have the means to test this, and it only works through the optical input, but it's a pretty interesting idea. Although based on what I know about audio, I would assume it probably doesn't work that great, because bouncing audio around for a rear channel doesn't often work that great. Alright, conclusion time. So, is it worth the money? At their used price of anywhere between $400 to $100, I definitely think they're worth it. My last speakers were about $80, and these are worlds better by far, just because the sound is clearer and it doesn't have that weird tone about it that the old ones did. And At their original MSRP, which I just looked up, was about $800 for the GS version, which basically means smaller satellites and a different remote, but nearly identical sound. I don't really know. I don't have perspective with comparing it to any speakers of that expense and that price range, so I don't know. But at their used price, I'd say they're a steal, and if you don't mind used speakers, go at it. That's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment how I can improve future videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye!